Welcome back to Get Well Acadiana with Dr. Kevin. Thank you so much for joining me on this fine Saturday morning. If you've never listened to the show before, my name is Dr. Kevin Linderman. I'm the Senior Vice President of the Bryant Wellness Institute, and we're Louisiana's most advanced functional medicine institute. And that means that we use some of the latest technologies available to treat today's most complicated conditions without drugs and without surgery. And my purpose for being here is to try to help as many people as I possibly can on Saturday morning. And I want this to be the show that's more than just something interesting to listen to. I want this to be the show that has inspired you to take action and do something different to try to change your health. So, I take this very serious. I'm here with my co-host, Brandon Como. Brandon, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Doc.
Man, I tell you, I'm excited about the show. A few weeks ago, we covered 8 foods that you should avoid and 8 foods you should eat every day and some industry tricks. And I didn't quite have time to cover everything that I wanted to cover. And in fact, we looked up after the first segment. I think it was 20-something, 26 minutes or something, wasn't it, Brandon? So I got on a roll and ran out of time. There's so much to talk about whenever it comes to food. And so I wanted to continue some of that today. And I have some food industry labeling secrets and tricks that I wanted to go over and talk a little bit about how to read food labels. And I even have some diet secrets from around the world where we'll talk about different parts of the world and are they overweight or are they thin and how is their diet compared to us. And I mean, you take the French, for example, Brandon, the French eat some of the richest food out there and high calorie food, and they're some of the thinnest people.
Yeah.
So many times when you talk to somebody about their diet, they go, well, it's just because we have a high-fat diet or whatever. It's really not. It's just because a lot of times we're being tricked. And the thing that's so unfortunate to me is sometimes folks think that they're eating healthier. They'll go to the grocery store and buy food that they think's healthier. Mm-hmm. And when we start looking at it, it's really not. They've been tricked. And that happens so many times. And just take yogurt, for example. Someone says, well, I'm eating a low-fat diet. I'm avoiding any fats, and I'm eating my yogurt for breakfast. And, they'll think they're eating healthier, and they're really just eating a lot of sugar or eating a lot of carbohydrates, and they're just not losing their weight. Or I'll see them try to exercise to lose weight. And, listen, guys, exercise has a lot of benefits. Weight loss is really not one of them. I see these people at the gym, they've been doing the same exercises now for a year, and they still look the same. Yeah. And the reason that happens is if you've ever been on the treadmill and, you're walking 45 minutes and you've looked down, you burn 80 calories, that's one bite of something. Yeah. You can't exercise it off. It has to happen in the kitchen. And so that's a few of the things that I wanted to go over on the show. And for those of you that missed the show a couple of weeks ago, the first thing we did was we talked about 8 foods you should try to eat every day. And real quickly, those 8 foods were spent because I had a lot of emails of people asking me, hey, what were those foods? What were those foods? So it was spinach, blueberries, walnuts, oats, avocados, tomatoes, carrots, and black beans. Those are foods that you should try to eat as much as you can. And the main thing about those foods is they're all very anti-inflammatory. Inflammation is the precursor to almost every chronic disease that we have. Every doctor agrees with that. Mm-hmm. And so that's agreed to throughout the healthcare profession as a whole is as inflammation is the beginning of almost all diseases. But you know what? There's an extra sentence to that. What's causing the inflammation? And that's in my specialty what we really look for. We want to figure out what's causing that inflammation. And not just say, well, you have heart disease because you're inflamed, or you got you got cancer because you're inflamed. Well, let's figure out what's causing the inflammation and go from there. And so the 8 foods that I said that you should avoid every day was number 1, margarine. And I railed on margarine for quite a while, and I got quite a response from people that just did not know that. They thought their country crock was healthier because it's not butter.
Yeah, it was marketed as if it was some new healthy wave of food. I can remember that as a kid, seeing that.
Yeah.
In reality, we were just being lied to.
It was one of the biggest mistakes. Mm-hmm. That's it's pure trans fats, which are the worst kind of fats. They're the most heart clogging, inflammatory type of fats that you can eat. And so number one on the list of foods to avoid was margarine, and then we talked about processed meat and farm raised fish and non-organic poultry. We talked about American cheese, and that's the kind that comes in that's individually wrapped, like what we had when we were kids. You know, we were laughing about that, Brandon.
Can I go back to one that you talked about? Okay,
absolutely.
you talked about, because you mentioned farm-raised fish, tilapia.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, farm-raised fish is obviously something that you don't recommend, especially if it comes out of Vietnam, a lot of other countries. Are there some good places that sell good fresh tilapia in this area? That, because I love the taste of tilapia, but I can't eat it anymore knowing these facts. And I swear, last time I had tilapia, I just could not stop thinking about the trash that tilapia is known to be generated around in those other countries. So is there good tilapia? Like, what places around here, I guess, what to look for the good tilapia?
You know, I really haven't found anything like that. Any natural tilapia is a very easy fish to grow.
Yeah,
it'll grow in almost anything. Like and it's real tough and it survives, and that's why you see it grown a lot. Locally, I really don't know of any really healthy tilapia. I know some of our healthier grocery stores that we have around here really make a huge effort. You know, some of like our more organic grocery stores really make a huge effort to make sure that their fish is some of the cleanest, healthiest fish out there. So, that's probably a good place to start. And then, I know there's some local farms who raise like farm-raised catfish and things like that. And I always like to support our local farmers, but any farm-raised fish has to be fed artificial food. And that's part of the problem with it, is there's simply not enough natural food in a farmed fish for them to survive and grow. They have to be fed artificially, and that's where the inflammatory fats come in.
So now, I'm not trying to disparage any restaurants, but if you have on the menu at a restaurant a tilapia dish, would you personally be wary of it?
Oh, I would never get that. And even whenever I'll see like cedar cooked salmon or something like that, I always ask if it's wild caught or if it's farm raised.
Yeah.
And if it's farm raised, I'll end up getting something else.
So wild caught salmon, obviously, but going back to tilapia. Wild caught tilapia is something that would be good for you, though.
It would be, and I don't know if there is such a thing. Honestly, I've never seen it anywhere. I'm just not sure. I'm sure you could kind of Google that, see if you could find something around here that is that. Yeah. I'm not even really sure where tilapia comes from naturally. I know it's one of the most farmed, next to catfish, one of the most farmed fish. In the world. So I'm not sure. Yeah, we'll check on that and see. I'll do a little post on my Facebook page, and we'll see if we can come up with something on that. And, that's just like chicken. Chicken is one of the most highly farmed meats in the country. It's by far the most eaten meat in the United States, and it's the most consumed meat in the United States. There's 8 billion chickens farmed every year in this country for food, and that causes them to have to maximize their growth and their production in order to keep up with the demand. And chickens are routinely packed together in 2/3 of a square foot to live in. So they'll take a 20,000 square foot shed and put 30,000 chickens in it. And they're standing on top of each other. They live basically in their waste products, and the ammonia that's produced from that's very harmful. Sometimes they don't clean out the sheds for 2 to 4 years, if you can imagine that. And so chickens are by far the most genetically modified of all the meats that we eat. And that means that they're not near as healthy or tasty as they used to be. Chickens go from fully born to ready to kill in about 6 weeks. And in the 50s, I think it was the 1950s, a chicken weighed about 2 pounds. Now the average size of a chicken weighs about 9 pounds. And it does that in 6 weeks. So they grow 65 times faster than regular chickens. And I mean, think about it. You guys have seen a chicken breast. When we were kids, a chicken breast was about the size of the palm of your hand. And now a chicken breast is the size of almost your both hands. I mean, they've gotten huge, and that's how. A lot of times these chickens can't walk or breathe, and to prevent disease, they spray them with antibiotics and medicines and all kinds of toxic chemicals. And so, chicken farming is one of the things that you really want to watch out for as well.
So what do we need to look out for when we go shopping for chicken at the stores?
You want to get and that's the thing. You have to watch out for these labels like humanely raised or that means nothing.
Yeah.
They could put that on anything.
Okay.
And also people think they see raised without hormones and they think, oh, well, this chicken's healthy. It's illegal to put hormones in chicken. It has been since the 60s. So there's no chicken's been raised with hormones.
Yeah.
So you really want to watch those kind of tricks. But if you'll get an organic grass or organic free range chicken, then they're probably pretty good for you, probably pretty healthy. Okay. And everybody that has chickens at their house or in their yard knows how much better those chickens are for you and how much tastier they are than the ones that you buy that are mass produced. So you really kind of have to watch that. When we get back from this break, we're going to talk a little bit more about macronutrient manipulation, and what that means is how you balance your carbohydrates, fats, and proteins in order to eat a healthier diet. And that's one of the most important things you can do for healthy eating and for weight loss in general is just properly balance your macronutrients, which are proteins, carbs, and fats. So we'll be right back after this break. But if you would like to talk to me about any health problems that you may be having, you're more than welcome to call my office at 837-7174 and leave your name and number on my machine. Obviously, I'm not at work today, but I'd be glad to give you a call back whenever I get back to work Monday and discuss any health problems that you might be having, whether it be weight loss or you're interested in losing weight or some sort of other health problem, diabetes, whatever it is. I'd be more than happy to discuss that on the phone to see if I think my methods might be able to solve your problem. So my number is 837-7174. We're going to be right back right after this short break. Welcome back to Get Well Acadiana with Dr. Kevin. We're discussing nutrition today on the show. And, normally on this show, we come on here and talk about serious health problems. We discuss solutions to hormonal imbalances and diabetes and, all kinds of chronic, serious diseases. And today we wanted to lighten it up a little bit and talk about nutrition. And we were continuing this from a show 2 weeks ago where we discussed foods that you should avoid and foods that you should include into your diet. And I wanted to get into now discussing macronutrient manipulation. And what that means is how you balance your proteins, carbohydrates, and fats in your diet. And that's the number one question when it comes to food that I get. Should I go low carb? Should I go low fat? Should I do Atkins? Should I do a paleo diet? I mean, there's all these diets out there. And honestly, I prefer a little bit more of a Mediterranean style of eating myself. Brandon, I don't know if y'all have studied a lot about Mediterranean, but it's higher fat than most diets are, and fats are super healthy for you.
What would be some of the mainstay foods in a Mediterranean diet?
Yeah, so in a Mediterranean diet, it's foods that are very high in the healthy type fats, lots of olive oils and avocados and walnuts and fish and lots of leafy green vegetables, and a little bit of grains and some meats and very little of the processed carbohydrates. And if you would start eating this way, you would see, if people would see, if they would start eating this way, that you're full all the time.
Right.
Healthy fats give you energy and keep you full. When you eat processed food, you're hungry again in a couple of hours. And when I eat something processed, I notice that. Like, I'm hungry again in an hour.
Yeah.
And when I eat something that's, a healthy, high-fat, Mediterranean-style meal, I'm full for, hours at a time.
Well, I remember a couple weeks ago when you were talking about the blueberries and you're talking about what you put in your body, and I thought about it. Well, let me see the difference between how I feel between eating some blueberries and eating a bag of chips.
Uh-huh.
And there's a big difference in the way your body feels coming off of that. I mean, there's a reason why, as much as I love chips, it's called junk food.
Right.
And I mean, it's like with this too. You want to make sure you're putting the right stuff in your body. Now, I'm curious. Mediterranean and paleo, are they pretty similar diets?
They're very,
Yeah.
they are kind of similar. You know, all of these diet trends are getting away from processed carbohydrates
Right.
and more towards, protein.
It's like
healthy
it's taking
fats.
it back old school.
Exactly.
I mean, really, it's like throwback, going back to the earlier years where
Right.
humans were,
Yeah.
earlier around.
And, I always kind of clown the paleo stuff just a little bit because who really knows what caveman ate? I mean, they probably ate grub worms and grasshoppers and, I mean, I don't think you really
Doc,
want
I ain't doing that. I'm just going to be right
I don't
up
think you really
with
want to
you.
eat really like the caveman
Yeah.
did, the area they lived in probably mattered a lot too.
Yeah.
The ones that lived up north probably ate way different than the ones that were more in, a desert climate. So you can't really say that, but they call it paleo, which is a fairly good diet, and it's about lean, healthy proteins, leafy green vegetables, plant-based foods, and the Mediterranean probably goes a little bit more on the high fat, which is kind of why I prefer that. Because fats are a really important part of your diet.
Okay, so you identified trans fats as being the worst, and that was a lot in margarine. Now, you mentioned high-fat foods being good for you as far as making you full and such. What is that what you're looking for in the back of the label? What are you looking for in the back of the label when you're looking for the healthy kind of fat?
Yeah, so saturated fats are your animal fats.
Okay.
And then trans fats are fats that are like your margarines, and anything that'll be trans fats will probably say, it will say hydrogenated. So whenever you look at the fat on the back, it will say, or in the list, it'll probably say partially hydrogenated something. And that is, trans fats are 100% killers. Now, your healthier fats are your monounsaturated and your polyunsaturated fats. And don't worry about the name too much. All that means is just the chemical makeup of them reduce your risk of heart problems, reduce diabetes, promote healthy nerve function, and are anti-inflammatory. And that's the exact opposite of the bad fats. The bad fats create inflammation, and the good fats reduce it. And so these are very health-promoting foods like, avocados, walnuts, fish, wild-caught fish. Those kind of things are very high in the healthy fat. And also, things like real organic grass-fed butter and coconut oil, even those technically, I know those are saturated fats. And I had a couple people mention that, last time. Well, those are saturated. Yes, I know those are technically saturated fats, but they're very anti-inflammatory. So they're considered in the good fat realm. So there's some crossover. You kind of have to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But coconut oils, olive oils, those kind of things are really good for you. Now, one other thing to remember about fats before we move on, though, is if you're going to cook with a fat, you have to know what temperature that fat breaks down and turns into trans fats. The reason that restaurant frying is so bad for you is because they use the same oil. I know it's gross, but sometimes for weeks before they change out their cooking oil.
Gotcha.
And every time they heat it, it turns more and more into the trans fats and less into the good fat. So if you're at home, and I'll like pan sear or pan fry something at home fairly often in either coconut oil or one of those healthier oils, and it's not that bad for you because you just do it once. You heat the oil once, you use a high heat stable oil, and it's not bad for you because fats aren't, having some fat in something that you fry at home is not bad.
Right.
Now, if I kept that oil and used it over and over and over, that's whenever it breaks down and becomes unhealthy. Or if I'm going to use olive oil and I'm going to try to heat something really high, olive oil has a really bad high temperature rating. It turns into unhealthy oils at a real low temperature. So that's why if you're going to fry at home, use coconut. And if you're just going to put it on a salad, use olive oil. And so you kind of have to know what you're doing. And that's why having a coach makes all the difference, because this stuff can get a little bit complicated. And so the thing with fats, though, is just eat like walnuts and almonds and avocados and wild-caught salmon, olive oil, coconut oil, real grass-fed organic butter. And those kind of fats are really good for you. and they will keep you full a long time. Now, the one oil that I wanted to talk about that you should absolutely avoid is cottonseed oil. Now, this is something that we read that seems really not a big deal. I mean, everybody's probably read that they're eating cottonseed oil and hadn't thought twice about it. Guys, cotton, first of all, is not even a food. It's a textile. It's for making T-shirts, not cupcakes. So cottonseed oil is a waste byproduct of cotton farming and the textile industry. That's why it's so cheap. And that's why it's added to everything. It's the cheapest edible oil on the planet. And to use the word edible and cottonseed oil together is really questionable. So in fact, do you remember Crisco whenever we were kids? Crisco, back in the day, stood for crystallized cottonseed oil. It was processed cottonseed oil hydrogenated with chemicals. And Procter & Gamble was looking for a way to make candle wax. And so they hydrogenated cottonseed oil, which made a great wax. They couldn't figure out how to make it hard enough to make a candle with it. So they realized you could cook with it. And they called it Crisco. And that was the beginning of us eating unhealthy fats and starting to turn from a more natural way of cooking over to more processed stuff. And Procter & Gamble kind of led the way with the old Crisco. And so that's one more time that we changed away from. Before that, people fried with lard, if you'll remember, for those of you that go way back. And when we switched from that to Crisco, it was one of those examples where a large company made something that wasn't healthy for us, but decided to switch to it and promote it as being healthier. And that's kind of like what they did with margarine. But cotton is known as the world's dirtiest crop. It's sprayed more than any other crop out there. Many of the chemicals used, and this is the thing about cottonseed oil, since it falls under the textile monitoring and not the food monitoring because it's cotton, they can use chemicals that they can't use in food industry sometimes. And so that makes cottonseed oil one of the most toxic things that you can eat. And they use the waste products they use are like hexane, bleach, and chemical deodorizers to make cottonseed oil out of it. And you know, the thing about cottonseed oil is your children can have a negative reaction to this that can affect their brain function and concentration. So let's say that they're eating cottonseed oil every morning in something that you're giving them for breakfast, and that causes them to have a negative reaction to it where they have hyperactivity or concentration problems. And that could be part of the problem is in their concentration and their behavior is they may have an intolerance to something that they're eating. So like if they eat a Pop-Tart in the morning and it has cottonseed oil in it and that causes a behavioral reaction or a hyperactive reaction, that's something that we can take a look at. And many times if you eliminate that, they'll do way better. But, you know, by the way, folks, if you're still feeding your kid Pop-Tarts in the morning, please stop. You know, find your kids some real solid food before breakfast, something without processed chemicals and sugar and bad fats. You know, we have to start picking healthier options for our kids before school. But the thing about this cottonseed oil is that these big food companies are producing this stuff and they're getting richer and richer because it's so cheap. So you just want to avoid it as much as you possibly can. Now, the next macronutrient that I wanted to talk about in the diet is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are probably the most overeaten of all macronutrients. So when we get back from this break, we're going to talk about carbohydrates and how to monitor them and how to keep them under control and what you can do about them. But listen, if you're out there struggling with your health problems and you just don't know what to do about it, why don't you call my office and let's have a phone conversation to see if I think I can help you. My number is 837-7174. That's 837-7174. Just leave your name and number on my machine. I'll give you a call back Monday when I get to work, and we'll talk about what's going on with you, and I'll tell you if I think my methods would help you. So it's 837-7174. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Get Well Acadiana with Dr. Kevin. Thank you so much for joining us. We're having a deep discussion about some details about our food industry, nutritional advice, food industry tricks and tips that you should know. And the next item that I wanted to discuss is carbohydrates. And just to back up for a second, what we're discussing here are manipulating your macronutrient intake. And that's the most important thing you can do whenever it comes to weight loss. You can't, calories don't count. Counting calories is not the best way to do it. Counting macronutrients is the best way to do it. And I always use this as an example for these calorie and point counting people that, they're on these programs where they're counting calories or they're counting their points. And, they'll say, well, I can have this, item. I can have this, cookie. It's only 5 points or whatever. So that's not really the way your body looks at food that you eat. When you eat food, when you swallow a bite, your body says, is this a protein, a carbohydrate, or a fat? And I'll give you some example. Let's say I put 2 plates in front of you, and on one of them, I have a piece of chocolate cake. Total calories, probably about 500. And on the other plate I put in front of you, there's 3 chicken breasts. Total calories, probably about 500. So for these calorie counters, those 2 plates mean exactly the same thing. If I'm going to eat, those 2 plates are the same. Which one am I going to pick? I'm going to pick the cake, of course. My body is not going to do the same thing with those 2 plates of 500 calories. So counting calories is not the best way to lose weight. I can't tell you how many calories I eat every day. And people ask me that all the time. They look at my weight loss success, which, by the way, I've lost 73 pounds and kept it off for, 6-7 years now. And so when I explain this to them, that I don't look at calories, I look at macronutrients, how many proteins, carbohydrates, and fats I have every day. It's a real eye-opener. Now, carbohydrates are the most overeaten macronutrient in the typical American diet. And so the average American eats 7 times too many carbohydrates in their diet. So think about this, Brandon. When you go out to eat, first thing to hit the table, a drink, right? Like a soft drink or a beer or a sweet tea. Down here we got to have our sweet tea. Carbohydrate. Then they bring bread.
Yep.
Yeah, bread, carbohydrate. Then they bring a salad, carbohydrate, with dressing, carbohydrate.
But that's supposed to be the healthy part.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the healthy part. And then they bring your entree with rice, carbohydrate, a vegetable, carbohydrate, and 1 protein. And then you save room for
Dessert,
carbohydrate, or another beer, carbohydrate. So you see how to balance that is. That's like 7 or 8 lists of carbohydrates and 1 little protein. And so we need to flip that on its ear, go 180 degrees from that, and have lots of proteins and healthy fats and a little bit of carbohydrates, but we're doing it exactly the opposite. And so the average American has 7 times too many carbohydrates in their diet. And I'm here to tell you, the number one reason that people have weight problems are from excess carbohydrates. Carbs are making us fat. Fats are not making us fat. So get out of the old 80s way of thinking that if I eat fat, I'm going to get fat. It doesn't work that way. Carbohydrates are making you fat. You remember those old Snackwell cookies, back when we were kids, they're fat-free? They couldn't keep those things on the shelf because that was during the low-fat craze.
Yeah.
Obesity went through the roof. Nobody lost any weight eating those. Everybody went high sugar, 0 fat in those little Snackwell cookies.
So let me ask you, you talked about carbohydrates and the average American having 7 times more carbohydrates than they need to. If somebody, for those that are listening and they're wondering, okay, well, how much carbohydrate should I have? I would assume that everybody has everyone can take a different level of carbohydrate based on, body size, all that good stuff. So how do you figure out the right amount of carbs that you need?
Great question. So here's what we do. We set down a macronutrient number. Like, for instance, I might say I want you to have, 150 grams of protein, 100 carbs, and 70 fats, whatever it is.
Right.
And then on Monday morning, they'll do a measurement. They'll do a waist and a weight measurement, and they're going to send me a text. And that text will have, it's an update text, and it'll say previous waist, current waist, previous weight, current weight, and assigned macros. And I can look at their macros and look at their response of their waist and their weight, and I can tinker with those macro numbers until they get into what's called fat burning mode. And fat burning, and because it's different for everybody, and it's a guesswork without it. And so I look at that and go, okay, their weight went down 3 pounds, their waist dropped down a ½ inch. They're on top. They're on target. They're right where they should be. They're on top of it. So then we just let those numbers roll. Now, if they send me a text update, waist didn't change, weight didn't change. Now I need to change those macros a little bit. I might say, let's increase your protein 10. Let's decrease your carbohydrates 10. Let's up your fats 5. So I keep changing that formula for that one patient until their particular body finds the formula that causes them to get into fat burning mode. And I can usually hit it within a couple of weeks. 2 or 3 weeks, we've got them into this fat burning mode where it's every week it's down 2 pounds, 3 pounds, 2 pounds, 4 pounds. And they're just dropping like crazy. And so that's how I tailor my macronutrients for that particular patient, so that we can make sure that that patient is getting the exact macronutrients that their body needs to lose weight in a healthy way where they're not starving. Because listen, what we do is we take those total macronutrients and we divide them over 6 meals: breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, snack. And so if the person has 60 fats, that would be 10 each one of those meals. And that way they're eating 6 times a day. Now really it's 3 big meals and 3 snacks. It's not you eating 6 total meals, but we call them meals because it's like a breakfast, and then a mid-morning snack, and then lunch, and then a mid-afternoon snack, and then dinner, and then a nighttime snack. So we call it 6 meals, but it's not actually meals. It's just grab something quick so that you're getting some macronutrients in your body.
It's not big portions.
Yeah, not big portions, small portions. And the thing about it is, it keeps your metabolism going. It's like a fire. I tell patients, it's like when you're building a campfire. If you don't eat until lunch, your metabolism is already wrecked. And whenever you do eat, you're going to be starving, so eat a big lunch. In fact, whenever I was 73 pounds heavier than I am right now. And I was talking to my weight loss coach before I became a weight loss coach myself. And he said, well, tell me what your diet is like. I said, well, I'm busy. I have coffee. I'm at work. I don't eat breakfast. I don't have time. And I eat a huge lunch because I'm starving by then. And I eat a huge dinner. And then I go to bed and do it all over again. He said, oh, I know another group of people that eat just like that. So I said, who? Sumo wrestlers. I was on the sumo wrestler diet. 2 really high, huge calorie meals a day. So I tell patients it's like a campfire. Once you get your fire going, you have to feed it little small branches until you get that roaring fire. And it's the same thing with your metabolism. You have to feed your metabolism a little bit every couple of hours so that you get that roaring metabolism to where you're just burning fat and burning weight like crazy.
So let me ask you this. Okay, because I've talked with you about this before off the air when it comes to fasting and intermittent fasting. There are some people that it may have worked for them and they may even have questions with it. And intermittent fasting would kind of seem like it'd be a little bit the opposite of what we're talking about here, where you're constantly feeding your metabolism. Obviously, intermittent fasting, you're going long periods without eating. Can you kind of address that and how, if you believe in intermittent fasting, and we've talked about it before, how is something that can work for people, even though it seems completely opposite of what we're talking about here?
Yeah, it is completely the opposite, and it works. The reason that it works is because when you go for a while without eating, there's a hormone in your body called leptin that it resets it. So if you eat 6 little small meals over and over and over, day after day after day after day, you're going to reach a plateau. You're going to reach a point where your body just kind of stops losing. And at that point, that's because your body has adapted to that level of leptin. And so leptin is insulin's boss.
Yes.
Insulin is blood sugar's boss. So all of this has to do with controlling insulin, which signals fat storage in your body. And so when you go intermittent fasting, it resets your body's leptin level, which then you could go on and lose more weight after that. So intermittent fasting is a real thing, and it is. There's a lot of studies that show it's really good for you. It helps control your levels of leptin, which is a weight loss hormone.
So you talked about leptin so many times before, especially when it comes to diabetes, and how leptin is not talked about enough. And it's something that really has to be addressed when you're talking about someone who's struggling with diabetes or someone who's trying not to get diabetes. Would you recommend intermittent fasting first, and what you're just talking about here as well, eating the 6 meals throughout the day? Do you recommend that as far as someone who's either diabetic or someone who's trying to avoid diabetes?
Yeah, as long as their blood sugar's not going crazy on them.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of have to be a little closer monitoring on them. And, you know, with our diabetes program, and we have an amazing program for getting, you know, people with diabetes a lot of help with that. And diabetes is not a life sentence any longer. Diabetes can now be solved. You know, there's patients all the time that are able to stop taking their diabetes medicine and actually make their body healthier so they don't have that anymore. So diabetes is no longer a life sentence. Our diabetes program is really second to none. We've had so many people really get amazing benefits and amazing relief from diabetes, even after they've had it for years. And the thing about our diabetes program, most blood work, like you go to the doctor and he checks your blood work and you have diabetes, all he tests is your blood sugar and your A1C.
Right.
But diabetes is a problem with insulin, and they don't ever test insulin. So that's a blood test that they don't do. They check blood sugar and A1C. So diabetes management, quote unquote management, becomes all about keeping your blood sugar in this little box that they call normal. And it's not a problem with blood sugar. It's a problem with insulin and leptin. So in our blood test, we also test for insulin and we test for leptin. So we want to, in the treatment of diabetes and many of these other chronic diseases as well, we want to try to get as far upstream in that disease as we possibly can. Like we want to get up in, you know, as far up to where the origination of this disease is. And just checking blood sugar and A1C is way downstream from where the problem is in diabetes. And so a little bit more knowledge about ways to blood test so that you can really figure out what's going on with diabetes is really a smart way to look at that. And it's all about managing leptin and insulin in the diabetic patient to make it work. But yeah, intermittent fasting is a great thing to do. Now, after this break, I actually wanted to go over some food industry tricks and tips, and we're going to also go through the most overrated health foods out there. So what are the things that you think you're eating healthy, but come to find out you're actually not? So we're going to do that right after this break. But if you're suffering out there with some health problems and you're wondering if you think I might be able to help you, the only way I would know that is for us to just talk about it and see if I think that my methods would help you. I don't care if you're suffering with something you think you have to live with or something that you've had, you know, for years and years. You can call my office at 837-7174. And if I don't think I can help you, I won't waste your time. It's 837-7174. Just leave your name and number on my machine. And when I get back to work Monday, I'll give you a call. We'll discuss what you have going on. And I'll tell you a little bit about what I think I can do for it or maybe not. But we'll at least be able to see if I can help you and possibly solve whatever it is you're suffering with. And I don't care if it's diabetes or weight gain or some other chronic disease. Let's look and see if we can get you headed on a healthier path today. It's 837-7174. We're going to have 6 most overrated health foods when we get back. Welcome back to Get Well Acadiana with Dr. Kevin. We are discussing food tips and tricks today. And right before this break, I was telling you we were going to discuss 2 more things, the 6 most overrated health foods and food labels that are in our industry tricks. And so I'm not going to have time to discuss both, but I just want to tell you one of the most overrated health foods that I hear about is yogurt. You know, there's nothing wrong with real, true, honest-to-goodness yogurt, but it has turned into this sort of sugary, fake fruit kind of chemical laden thing that's not even really yogurt in there anymore. And so, you want to be careful with some of these things. The same thing like with these protein bars. These things are not healthy foods, even though they're talked about as foods. But what I really wanted to get into in the time that I have left is some food labels that are tricks, because this is something that I see people misunderstand all the time. And the first one that I wanted to talk about is things that say made with. For instance, you'll see made with real fruit. There's no industry standard on how tiny of amount you can put in that food to say made with real fruit. So I could literally have a barrel of high fructose corn syrup and go and pour or drop a single blueberry in it and say made with real fruit. And so there's no industry standard there about what made with means. And the same thing with the word natural. Dr. Kevin said, I need to eat more natural foods. You go to the grocery store, you see something that says natural on it and say, well, he said to eat natural, I'll buy this one. You could put natural on anything. There's no regulation on this word natural either. So you really have to know what you're doing. The word organic and the word natural is not the same thing. And then also this word lightly sweetened. Dr. Kevin said I needed to eat less sugar, so I'm going to get this one that says lightly sweetened. That's a relative term as well. These are all tricks that they put on the front of this packaging to get you to buy it because you're trying to eat healthier and you're actually not eating healthier. And so they use these words like low or reduced or light or lightly sweetened. And these things really don't have a lot of meaning whenever it comes to the amount of food or the amount of macronutrients that you're taking in your body. And that's why counting your macronutrients are so important. Now, we use a simple little app for your phone. And I know I've talked a lot today about counting macronutrients, and people say, well, my gosh, I would just never have time to do all of that. We use a simple little app on your phone. All you have to do is just scan the barcode on the food that you're eating, and it pops right in your phone, and it keeps track of all that for you. It's real simple and quick, and that's the only way you're ever going to know what you're truly taking in your body, is to actually measure it. People say, well, yeah, doc, I'm eating healthier. What does that mean? Are you really? How do you know that? Do you just feel like you're eating healthier? Are you actually eating healthier? Or, doc, yes, I've started eating way less sugar. Well, how do you know that? And so the only way to know that is just to track it and monitor it and put that in your phone. And then when you look at the app on your phone at the end of the day, it'll say you've had X number of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And this app even tracks weight loss. And so it's a great little way that we can track what food you're actually taking in. And, the only thing it doesn't keep track of is is it healthy fats or unhealthy fats, or, is it slow carbohydrates or kind of more sugary carbs. But, if you try to make those macronutrients healthy ones, like I try to make the fat that shows up on my app, I try to make it healthy fats, and I try to make the carbs, slower carbs like oatmeal and things like that, then you're going to be fine. You're going to lose the weight. And then we do that text update to measure them, which is really a neat thing. And so our program is really individualized for that particular person, their particular metabolism, and what they have going on in their particular life. And that's the only way you're ever going to get down to your ideal size and stay there in a healthy, natural way, because you're different than, your aunt or your sister. And I hear that a lot. People say, well, my sister lost weight doing Atkins, so I'm doing Atkins. Or, my cousin lost weight doing paleo, so I'm doing paleo. Everybody's different. And we can tailor an individual program for your exact body, your type, and even your food likes and dislikes. And that's what makes this neat. I can tell you to eat 10 grams of protein, and you can pick whatever you want to make that up. And so this program has a wide variety of leeway for the patient. They can really make it up with whatever they want as long as it fits within their, within their determined macronutrients for that day. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me on the show. I really appreciate you listening. And once again, if you're interested in talking to me about finally solving your health problems once and for all, it's time. Guys, life is too short to be sick and suffer and ran down and unhealthy. We're only given a certain number of days here on this planet. And to spend even a portion of those days, even 1 or 2 days a week, not feeling your best is such a human tragedy to me. My purpose, the reason that I get out of bed every day is to try to help as many people as possible get on a healthier road so that they can live a longer, more functional life to where when they're 60, 70, 80 years old, they can do whatever they want and garden and golf and fun and do all of the things that they've enjoyed doing in their life. Because one of the saddest things that I have to do is whenever I have to walk into the room and sit down with a patient and tell them that unfortunately they waited too long and there's now nothing I can do to try to reverse their health problem and they now have to live with whatever it is that they came in with. That's one of those things that just breaks my heart, and I hate having to do that. So if we can catch it before it gets to that point, it's so much better for you. My phone number is 837-7174. All you have to do is call and leave your number on my machine, and I will do whatever I can to try to help you. I'll give you a call back Monday when I get back to the office, and we'll see what we can do. It's 837-7174, or you can catch me on Facebook at the Bryant Wellness Institutes. Thank you for joining us, guys. We'll talk next week.